In this session, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the complexity of charge and the multisensory nature of the charge anomalies. And then I'm going to focus in much more detail on two of the senses, the proprioceptive sense and the vestibular sense, what we often call the forgotten senses. Difficulties with both senses are very common in children with charge, and they are really very, very important sensory systems. Once you know about them and you understand what these senses are meant to do, it helps to explain a lot of the things that children with charge do or don't do, and the ways in which they sometimes do things which might seem a little strange to us. I will also talk, I think, a little bit about practical strategies, but I will say a lot more about practical strategies in another module where I talk about educational strategies and ideas for schools to create effective programs for children, students with charge. It's important to remember that charge involves a lot more senses than just vision and hearing. People tend to focus in on the eyes and the ears very much and forget about all the other senses and the issues that can crop up with them. And I'd always stress to people that I think it's a good idea to think about charge as being a deaf-blind syndrome or a multi-sensory impaired syndrome. And people often get confused if the child can see anything at all, if they can hear anything at all. They think that deaf-blindness isn't an appropriate label. But the deaf-blind educational philosophy is a remarkably good fit for every child with charge syndrome, in my opinion. I'll say a lot more about that in the other module, but I really want to stress at the beginning, think deaf-blindness, think multi-sensory impairment. I've got a quote from a paper I wrote a long time ago now, 14 years ago, and I say, children with charge syndrome are truly multi-sensory impaired, having difficulties not only with vision and hearing, but also with the senses that perceive balance, touch, temperature, pain, pressure, and smell, as well as problems with breathing, swallowing, eating, drinking, digestion, temperature control, and so on. All the other difficulties that we get familiar with when we're involved with someone with charge. And then in an article from 2011, I say, most people with charge that I've met satisfy the criteria for being considered as having deaf-blindness, even if they have some helpful vision and hearing. This is a disability, deaf-blindness, that is defined in functional, not clinical terms. And for each individual with charge, it's mostly about difficulties in accessing information, not just from the world around them, but even from their own bodies.